Welcome back to another episode of the Towel Boy, where we try to give you the cleanest takes in sports. I'm really excited for today's episode. We're going to go over my official 2025 NBA big board. So, my rankings of the top prospects for the upcoming draft. Um, Spent a lot of time watching these prospects, developing my own opinions. And I love the draft board consensus like community because I think it's interesting just to see how opinions vary, how much you weigh a certain skill compared to consensus. Um, so I think it's always interesting to hear other people's opinions. There's a lot of people out there smarter than me that do this. Just as passionately or full time. Um, but I'm going to give you my thoughts on the top 50 prospects. This draft is a little interesting. I still do love the second round, especially where you can find those hidden gems. But NIL has really changed the draft landscape. You know, you have star freshmen like Lamar Vylon, Tahad Pettiford, Boogie Fland. They're all going back to college for get their money. You got all Americans or stud veteran players like Yaxel Lindenberg, uh, PJ Haggerty going back to college. So I think there definitely is a thinning out of this draft class as far as strength goes. So I'm doing my top 50. Obviously, there's more than 50 picks in the draft, but these are about the players where I think that are most draftable in this class. I have them broken up kind of into tiers. Don't get caught up too much in the numbers once you get further down the board. They're kind of fluid within those tiers. But basically, these tiers are where I can see them being high end, like they're kind of their ceiling where these prospects could end up in their NBA careers. Obviously, we know there's going to be a lot more busts and role players in G League and overseas players compared to All Stars, but it is always more fun, I think, to project their very high end top talent of each player because there's such a wide range of where a player could go. Uh, yeah, so without further ado, let's get up started with my 2025 draft big board. So at the top, there's two top prospects. So I have my two top tiers only have one player in them. So in tier one, I kind of have it as your franchise player, and that's Cooper Flag, of course, the wing of Duke, Swiss Army knife. He's the clear number one. I don't really think there's an argument about that. Consensus best player in this draft. Um, and then in the second tier, we have Dylan Harper. I do think that he's got all NBA potential. I think he's a very skilled. I think for his deficiencies, people kind of like to look at the negatives of a player. I think he's got really great downhill driving potential. I have him compared to him to Cade Cunningham, with the size, downhill driving ability. So I think my second tier, I kind of have it as the All NBA tier. I have Dylan Harper at number two, and then for the next couple spots in this next tier, I have it labeled the All Star tier. So I think there's about 10 or 11 players here in this All Star tier where I think I can see them um, hitting All Star level contribution in the future. So at number three, I do have Ace Bailey, the 6'9" wing out of Rutgers. Um, some people like, and I can see why people are a little bit lower on Ace, or hesitant. He likes to take tough shots, doesn't show much else other than shot making. I do think he's a good weak side rim protector. His measurables, I kind of compare him to Jabari Smith. He's shorter than Jabari for sure, not as good of a rebounder, but that kind of secondary scorer wing defender, I can see him kind of becoming. So at number three, I have Ace Bailey. Number four, I have VJ Edgecombe, wing combo guard out of Baylor. I think he could be a really good wing defender, kind of an offensive connector. He's never going to be a number one piece, but I think he's going to be a winning player, contribute on both ends of the court. I kind of compare him. It's a common comp, but more of that OKC Victor Oladipo, right? Not quite the All NBA Indiana. I'm not sure if he ever hits that ceiling, but he's a really good player. I think VJ Edgecombe at number four. Then number five, I have Kaman Maluach, the center out of Duke, 7'2". He's a raw because he's only been playing basketball for a couple of years, but he's a big presence. I think he can be a really good rim running big, rim protector, paint score, lob threat. And then at number six, I have his teammate Con Knippel. Con doesn't necessarily look like your typical stud, but he's just a baller, right? 6'7" wing, lacks athleticism, but he's an elite shooter, one of the best shooters. Catch and shoot, pull up, whatever. Um, I think he'd be a really good offensive connector. He's a better defender than people like to give him credit for, or at least is thought of. So number six, I have Colin Knippel. Then number 7, I have Derek Queen, center, power forward out of Maryland, freshman. I can see him. My player comp for him is Nas Reed. Really skilled offensive big man, talented, good with the ball in his hands, good handle. I believe in the shot a little bit more than others, so I have him at number 7. Number 8, I'm higher than consensus on Asen Newell, the power forward center out of Georgia. I think he's going to be a really good athletic. I think he'd be a really good defensive forward as well. Um, I think his touch, he's shown a lot with good touch. I think he could develop a little bit of a 3-point shot, maybe not a great shooter. But number 8, I like the upside of Asen Newell. Number 9, some people have him higher. I have Trey Johnson. Undeniably one of the best scorers, maybe not, maybe the best, just pure bucket in this class. I just have questions about every other part of his game. Not the best playmaker. Now, that could just be because he was on a Texas team that didn't have a lot of other dudes. He had to take a lot of the scoring responsibility. I talked about this before. He just has kind of like stiff hips and knees to me. He doesn't move super fluidly. Now, that doesn't necessarily always matter, but I think at the NBA, you can kind of see um, that at times could be a problem. But number 9, Trey Johnson. Number 10, another dude. I'm different than consensus. I'm way higher on Ben Serif, the guard. Um, and I can see him as a really good secondary ball handler, a little bit of a lead guard. He reminds me a lot of Jamal Murray. I love one of my favorite niche skills in this draft class is his ability to off the snake and then make plays off of the snake dribble in that mid range, that free throw line, whether it's live passing, pull up shot. I really like how he navigates that area of the court. Then number 11, I have freshman guard out of Oklahoma, Jeremiah Fears, one of the youngest players in this draft class. Like Cooper Flag, should be going into his freshman year of college this next year. I think he can be a really good lead guard. Questions about his finishing, his size, but the potential is there. So number 11, I have Jeremiah Fears. Number 12, one of the other youngest players in this class, I have Noah Essengay, the wing forward out of France. Um, about 6'9", 6'10", long wingspan, athletic. He moves down the court, super fluid, super athletic. I think he's going to create a really good role as an elite slasher. I don't know if he's going to be as good of a defender as Jaden McDaniels, but that's kind of the way I see him playing offensively. He's a good cutter, tertiary shooter, whatever. He's shown strides as a shooter, so I think Noah Essengay has a really good ceiling to be a really two-way player in this league. Then at number 13, beginning of the year, he was top 5 for me. He fell a little bit due to turnover concerns. Shot wasn't there this year, though I think he projects to be better than the NBA. At 13, I have Kasparis Yakuchonis, the 6'6" guard out of Illinois, freshman this last year. Um, I think he's going to be a primary facilitator, maybe a little bit of an off-ball scorer, but I think you're best highlighting his skills as a lead guard, which might see him fall because if he's your lead guard, is that necessarily an elite lead guard to have? Probably not. But how many elite lead guards are there? That kind of question. So I think at the 13 range, I feel pretty comfortable at him at 13. Then at 14, the last player in this all-star tier, I have Adu Tiero, the wing out of Arkansas. He improved his shot this year. He might be the best athlete in this draft class. Elite defender on the wing. Um, I think he's kind of a more polished prospect, Jonathan Kaminga, as far as the prospect that Jonathan Kaminga was. They kind of similar measurements, um, athleticism out the building. I'm really high on Adu Thiero, and if he can continue, if he shows that his improved shot this year was legit and he continues to improve it, then I think he's got a real shot to be a really good player in this league. So that is my top 14 so far. That's the All Star tier. Moving on to the next tier. I call this the contributors tier. It's where I think they're going to be high end role players, good players. Some of them maybe could potentially be a borderline all star, but I think these guys really have potential to be good contributors for an NBA franchise. So at 15, I have Thomas Sorber, the 6'10 freshman center out of Georgetown. Really big, 6'10, 250, 7'6 wingspan. Um, I think he's going to continue to improve, get good hands, be a good pick and roll big, rim running, athletic big man. He's young on the younger side, so I think he's going to be a really good center, probably one of the better center prospects in this draft class. He's more of that traditional big than like a Derek Queen, but 15, Thomas Sorber. 16, he's on the older side. He's going to be 23 years old at during draft night. But Neat Clifford, the wing out of Colorado State, that's who I have in my 16 spot. He's just a versatile wing that he's going to contribute, I think, right away to winning. He can shoot, he can cut, he can play out of the post a little bit, which I like that. But he can play any role that you want, kind of. Um, he can play two, three, four, maybe a little bit of a point if you have your star guard out. So I think his versatility is going to land him on a roster spot, and some teams are going to get a really good player out of Neat Clifford. He might fall a little bit due to his age, but at 16, I feel comfortable putting him there as a prospect. Then 17, I have Nolan Traore. I think he's going to be a primary ball handler, 6'4" guard out of France. A couple years ago, he was thought of to be a top five prospect in this class. Questions with his shot, kind of were there, inconsistent, inefficient this season. Picked it up as of late. Better shooting numbers. And one question mark with him is he's best served, I think, as a primary ball handler. Hasn't shown a ton off ball guard and defensively. So, do you want to invest in him as your point guard? But I think he's got a lot of talent driving the ball. I think he's a better shooter than what he's shown. The numbers have shown. I think he will improve. So at 17, I have Nolan Traore. Then 18, I have freshman wing forward out of Arizona, Carter Bryant. I think he's got ideal body type to be that 3-and-D wing. Didn't get a lot of usage at Arizona, but I think he's going to be a really good role player. I guess he can be in. Then at 19, this is probably the prospect that I have the hardest time kind of placing because his absolute ceiling, I think he's a really good player, but I just don't know. I got a lot of questions with his offensive ability. And this is a 19, Colin Murray Boyles, the forward out of South Carolina. About 6'7". He measured in about 6'5" and a half without his shoes, but playing size would be listed about 6'7", 7'1" wingspan. Um, I think he is the best overall defender in this draft class, better than Cooper Flag even. So he's going to be a real defensive anchor. But just his shot is it's a tough watch sometimes. And NBA, you got to be able to shoot, right? So will his defensive prowess and his other skills be enough to keep him on the court? I'm not sure. So I have him comfortably at 19. Um, his measurements, I kind of compare him to Jabari Walker, a little bit shorter, and then like the best version of Colin Murray Boyles is a Draymond Green light, right? Defensive anchor, uh, undersized 4 or 5, but just like elite defender. I can see him being. We'll see if his shot comes around. If his shot comes around, he's going to be a fantastic All NBA defender in this league. So then at number 20, I'm also lower on this prospect a little bit. I have Jace Richardson, combo guard out of Michigan State. I know that he's got the advanced numbers. I love his ability to play the one, the two, come off the bench, but just something about him. I don't. I think his size, his defensive question marks. Is he better off ball or is he better on ball? Um, Jace Richardson at 20, top 20 prospect for sure. Some people have him top 10. I don't see that. But I think he will be a good scoring guard. I can see him being. He's smaller, not quite the same player, but spark plug like Kobe White kind of combo guard, can play lead guard a little bit, but Jace Richardson at 20. 21, um, if I was going off of just what I project for the next couple of years, he'd be a lot lower, but his ceiling is really high. So I have Yegor Dimon, 6'9", wing guard out of BYU. He's going to be a facilitator, and so that's why he's a real project. He's maybe the best pure passer in this class, so you love that. 6'9", great size if he's a point guard passer, but that's about all that he does at a really good level. Below average shooter, needs to build his frame. Gets if he gets physicality, he kind of falls apart, disappears in games. So he's got a long ways to go to improve. But his ceiling with his vision, I can see it if he improves his shot. So 21, Yegor Dimon. Then at 22, I have Noah Penda, the forward wing. About 6'7", 7 foot wingspan. I think he's going to be one of the best defenders in this draft class. Improving offensive player, but I think he's going to make a name for himself as a defensive wing. I think he'll be a great role player. Um, I think Noah Pinda is going to be a really good player. I think he might be able to contribute quicker than people might think. And then at 23, I have four-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. I have Ryan Kalkbrenner, the 7'2" center out of Creighton. He's an older prospect. He's not going to do a whole lot other than be a really good drop coverage big, but he's going to be an elite rim protector. He can do a little bit as far as switching. Like he can hold his own. I think as far as like the humongous centers in the league go, but he's gonna be a really good defender, rim protector, good role playing center. I think in the league. Then at 24, I have Rasheer Fleming. He shot it at an elite clip this year. Um, 6'9" forward wing out of St. Joseph's. Came in 6'9" with a 7'5" wingspan. So that's the measurements are really incredible. So if his numbers are true from his shooting numbers this year at St. Joe's, uh, elite 3 and D type player, right? He can guard probably 2 through 5 with his wingspan. He's got the body type to muscle up with bigger players. So I think Rasheed Fleming is a really good prospect. I'm just 24 just because he played in the A10, right? See if that competition, the jumping competition, might be a little bit of an adjustment for him. Then at 25, I have Danny Wolf, really fun offensive big man, transferred from Yale to Michigan this last year, 7 foot center. As far as talent goes, he might be top 10, top 15, but I think he's best served with the ball in his hands. And I don't know if you're going to draft Danny Wolf to put the ball in his hands a whole lot, right? So you can do some fun things with him, but where he's best served, I don't know if a team is going to give him the opportunity to do that. So I have him at 25. At 26, I have, excuse my pronunciation, but I have Bogoljub Markovic, the 6'11" forward, Serbian forward. Going to be kind of like a stretch forward. He's 6'11", but only like about 190 pounds. Uh, Easy comp to Santi Aldama, about the same size, international prospect, right? But I think he'd be a good offensive player. He moves a little stiff to me, not the most athletic, but he's got good size, good length, good shooting touch. So I think if he hits the ceiling, he can be a really good player. Then number 27, I have Joan Behringer. He's kind of risen up the draft board. Um, 6'10" center, raw prospect. He's going to be an energy big coming in, but I think he's only 18 years old. Draft night, he's going to be a good player in future years to come. Might take a little bit of time. He's going to be raw for sure. And then at 28, I have Walter Clayton Jr., right? Uh, Most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament. 22 years old, 6'3", combo guard. He's one of the best scorers, pure buckets in this class as well. I think teams like the Heat or the Suns who need backcourt help, scoring help, they're going to be all over Walter Clayton. Kind of comp him to Peyton Pritchard coming out for big career in college. See questions on the defensive sides. We'll see if that happens. But he's good enough offensive player to make a name for himself in this league. Then 29, another very talented offensive player. I have Maxime Reynaud, the French center who played at Stanford, about 7'1". Really talented offensive big man, right? Not a lot of players can score like he can shoot like he can. Made about 35, I think, percent of his threes at Stanford, about 5 attempts a game. Offensive big man. I compare him to Luca Garza. I think Luca Garza is a really good offensive big man, but they have the same question marks in defense. Can they guard? Um, Not great. I don't think he's a very good defender, but he's got the offensive upside to be a really fun center. Not a lot of 7'1" centers can do what he does on the offensive end. And then the last person in this contributors tier, I have Will Riley. I think he's definitely a project player, but if that project works out, he's going to be a really fun wing player, right? 6'8" freshman, really wiry frame. I think he's going to take some time to adjust to the physicality of the NBA. But if he hits on his scoring upside, then he's going to be a really good wing player in this class. So 30, I have Will Riley. And then the rest of this class, the next 20 players, I have kind of rotation players. That's um, what I call this tier. Most of these guys will be in the bench rotation, G League guys to start out. Not to say that they can't hit higher upside, but this is where I think I kind of project them to be. 31, I have Cam Jones, combo guard out of Marquette. Not elite athleticism. Shooting numbers took a hit this year as the main guy, but I think he can be a good secondary ball handler for a team. At 32, I have Cedric Coward. Only played about 9 games for Washington State this year. Committed to Duke out of the portal before staying in the draft. He's really risen up a lot of draft boards, it seems. I'm not entirely sure why. Only played 9 games this year. 6'7", has a great 7'2" wingspan, and it seems like that's a big reason why people love him. I just don't know. We didn't see he was at Eastern Washington playing the Big Sky. I don't know if we saw enough of him playing good against top talent to be super high on him. Some people have him as a lottery talent. I have him at 32. And then at 33, a guy kind of reverse. I see a lot higher upside than other people. I have Dink Pate. His trajectory kind of got screwed up with the G League Ignite program. He played a Mexico City G League team this year. Pretty raw player, just athletic wing. But a lot of times, I'll admit, I'm a sucker for an athletic wing that just kind of pops every once in a while. He's still only 19 years old. So if he hits his upside, I think Dink Pate could be a pretty good player in this league. Then at 34, another super raw prospect. I have Rocco Zikarsky, the Australian center, about 7'4". I think the you see how raw he is as a prospect, but the flashes that he shows, he can hit a couple shots on the outside, but mostly as an interior defender. Pretty good athlete for someone about 7'4", 257. I like Rocco Zikarsky's upside, so I have him at 34. And then right behind him, I have at 35, I have Hansen Yang, the 7'2" Chinese center. He's about the same measurements as Rocco, but a better offensive player. Um, his numbers are great, but the CBA, we can probably all admit, is probably the weakest competition out of everybody coming in this draft class. So he's raw potential on the offensive end, I think, whereas Rocco might be a better defender. I think Hansen Yeager's got some fun flashes, passing, and scoring on the offensive end. Really impressed me at the combine scrimmages, so he shot up my draft boards kind of late. 36. This one's kind of crazy. People might disagree. They will disagree. I think I have Liam McNeely. Highly talented out of the grassroots high school level. I will say, he was injured for this season. But Liam McNeely at 36, the wing out of UConn, will only be 19 years old, but he came into this year um, supposed to be a knockdown shooter. He didn't shoot the ball very good. He doesn't impress me with his athleticism. Uh, if he's not shooting the ball well, I don't think he affects the game well. But then again, he was injured for pretty much most of the season. And he still had productive days. So maybe the high school rankings were right. Injury played a part, and I'll look stupid looking back on this. This is the one that I think, probably looking back, is the most likely that I feel silly being lower on the consensus with Liam McNeely. But at 36, I have Liam McNeely. 37, I have Amari Williams, the power forward center out of Kentucky, 7 foot, 262 pounds. I think he's got high upside as a playmaking big man on the offensive end. He's 23 years old, but he makes some fun passes. He's very dependent on his left hand, so he very rarely will go over his left shoulder with a right-handed hook, even when it's obvious. But he makes good passes. Kentucky was a way better team on defense when he was in there. And I think teams that are looking for rotation, big man at the end of their rotation, right? I think Amari Williams could fit right in. I think of teams like the Lakers who maybe don't need a star player, don't have a ton of draft capital, can find Amari Williams. He might even go undrafted. I'm pretty high on Amari Williams, but at 37, I have Amari Williams. Then at 38, we have somebody who rose up the draft boards kind of late due to the combine thing, right? He did, I think he went to the Portsmouth Invitational, impressed there. Went to the combine, had good numbers. So the Yannick Conan Niederhauser, the 6'11" center out of Penn State, high energy big. Um, I don't know necessarily what he does great. Very athletic, a rim running big man. I think can be a rotational piece in your front court. 39, I have Sion James out of Duke. Sion James, versatile wing. He measures about 6'5", can play 2, 3, 4. Played a little bit of the one for Duke. Can do a little bit of everything. Maybe not great at anything, but I think just a good basketball player, right? You need good basketball players if you want to win. I compare him to Lou Dort a little bit as far as his physicality, his frame, more than anything. But I can see him kind of taking that role as like a knock down some shots, be a good defender, connective passer. Then at 40, he's on the older side as well. I have Jameer Watkins. He might have gone higher in last year's draft. Came back to a bad Florida State team. 6'6" wing. He's going to be an athletic, versatile wing, making a name probably on the defensive end. Questions for me about his shot, if that's going to translate. It's just his overall offensive talent, but this is kind of where you see the talent fall off in this draft class a little bit. I think Jameer Watkins um, has the athletic abilities to be a contributing NBA player, though. So at 40, I have Jameer Watkins. 41, I have Hunter Salas, combo guard out of Wake Forest. Um, a 6'5" and a 6'10" wingspan. So I think that wingspan is really going to help him on the defensive end. If he really buys in, I think he can be a pretty good point of attack defender, secondary ball handler. I don't think he'll ever be an elite scorer or anything, but a good rotational player, Hunter Salas. And then 42, I have Jedi Broom. center out of Auburn, stud at the collegiate level. I just don't think really his lack of athleticism will be translatable to the NBA to have the same production that he had in college. Smart player. I always like to bank on smart, good basketball players finding a role, but at the end of the day, you have to have some athletic ability, and he really underperformed in the combine measurements and just his overall athleticism. I have a lot of question marks on. And then 43, I have Hugo Gonzalez, project player, wing out of Spain. Um, a lot of people like his defensive upside. I'm not as high on his defensive upside, um, but I think he can be a versatile wing. I think he could eventually become a little bit of a secondary ball handler on the offensive end, but I think he's a huge project, long ways away. Um, 43 of Hugo Gonzalez. He will only be 19 years old though, so he definitely has the time to um, improve. Then at 44, I have Javon Small, a combo guard out of West Virginia. He's undersized, about 6'1", does have a 6'5" wingspan. He's a pretty good shooter. He carried this West Virginia team, honestly, this last year. Um, I, for some reason, I see Casey Wallace out there as his like ceiling player. I think he could become a really good point of attack defender, even though he's undersized. Could be a pretty good shooter. He's a little bit smaller than Casey Wallace is, but I think similar roles. It's kind of how I viewed them. And then at 45, I Alex Tui, the wing out of Australia. I just really see him as being an off-ball shooter. Not a lot of nuance to his game there, I don't think. But he has upside to be an off-ball shooter. NBA, you need a lot of off-ball shooters. Then at 46, speaking of shooters, maybe the best pure marksman as just catch and shoot sharpshooter. I have Kobe Brea, right? He could be hired due to the fact that he is such a good shooter. So maybe I'll regret that later on. I can see him contributing minus wingspan, but he doesn't do anything else that I really think at an NBA level other than shoot the ball. So at 46, I have Kobe Brea. 47, I have combo guard out of Alabama, 5'11", 23 years old, Mark Sears, one of the best players in college basketball the last couple of years. Question marks basically about his size and his defense translating to the NBA. Similar to Carson Edwards is my comp to him. Similar size, undersized, scoring collegiate stud doesn't translate to the NBA. Kind of like Janai Broom, smart winning players in college. I like to bank on, but his measurements just I have him a little bit low on my draft board. 48, I have Chaz Lanier, combo guard out of Tennessee. 6'5", good shooter. There's going to be room for plus size guards that can shoot the ball well. 49, I have Micah Peavy, the wing out of Georgetown. If you watched a lot of Thomas Sorber film, you'll notice Micah Peavy jump out a lot. He was Georgetown's best player. Uh, he really made a name for himself at TCU as like a really good defensive wing, but he shot the ball at a really good clip this year at Georgetown. If that translates over to the NBA, I can see him being uh, a steal in this draft of Micah Peavy. And then the last person I have on this board, uh, I know he has the upside. I think he's just such a raw prospect. At 50, I have Drake Powell, the 19-year-old wing out of North Carolina. 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, athletic freak. He's good, really good athleticism. He is a pretty good defender, so I will give him that. But I think the offensive that I saw this year, so rough, so raw. Um, I'm just not sure if he. I would have liked to see him go back for another year. Probably then enter his name into the first round conversation. This is my board, though. A lot of places I've seen have him as a first round type of player. I think largely due to his upside. But yeah, at 50, I have Drake Powell. So that is my top 50. A couple guys that I'm a little bit higher on the consensus. I looked at a rookie scale website that kind of takes a bunch of big boards, combines them with like no ceilings, ESPN, other draft boards, makes that consensus big board. So a couple guys that are like my guys who are I have higher, at least double digit, 10 spots higher than consensus. I have Amari Williams. I have 20 spots higher than consensus. He's number 37 on my board, 57 on the consensus board. Ben Soroff is 18 spots higher for me. I have him as my 10th best prospect versus the 28th in the consensus big board. Adu Thiero, I'm 17 spots higher. Asa Newell, I'm about 10 spots higher. And Chaz Lanier, I'm about 10 spots higher. So those are kind of like my guys. Oh, another one. I have Dink Pate. I'm 15 spots higher. I have him my 33rd best prospect. Consensus had him about 48th. So those are about six guys that I'm definitely a lot higher on the consensus, at least 10 spots higher. than most draft boards. And then five guys that I'm a little bit lower on than consensus. Drake Powell, obviously, I'm 21 spots below where his consensus is. I have him as my 50th best prospect, uh, compared to the 29th best prospect consensus. Uh, like I said, I just he's such a raw prospect. I might look back and regret that. But yeah, 21 spots lower than normal on him. 19 spots lower on Liam McNeely. I have him at 36. The consensus rookie scale board had him at 17. Hugo Gonzalez, I have 13 spots lower than normal. I have him as 43. The big board had him as 30. And then Cedric Coward, I'm 12 spots lower on than consensus. So those are a couple of guys that I'm a little bit lower on than consensus. Um, but yeah, there it is. There's my 2025 official NBA draft big board. I was really excited to get this out there. Whole season, I love the draft season. I love being able to watch and compile and create thoughts about each player. So, franchise player, we got Cooper Flag, All NBA, Dylan Harper. And we have some All Star upside players like Ace Bailey, um, VJ Edgecombe, all the way down to I think some players that could contribute um, on a high end, right? So 2 weeks away from the draft from today. Super excited. You guys comment below what you guys think of my draft big board. Who are you higher on compared to me? Who you're lower on, and who you are excited to see get drafted this upcoming season. Thank you for watching and have a good one.